Hey everybody, welcome back, and if you are new, my name is Chris. Tonight's video is about warm and cozy woody fragrances. Fragrances that I have been wearing a ton in the past month or so. Maybe a year ago at this time, I would have been all about my really sweet and heavy gourmands. That's not what I've been reaching for. That's not what I have been craving. As soon as the weather turned a little bit cold, I have been wanting to wear my woody fragrances. I find them very comforting. I find them perfect for the time of the year, and they have just been something I have been craving of late. I have several different woody fragrances, and I'm going to categorize them by the wood. I'm going to talk about lots of different woody fragrances. Fragrances with oak, fragrances with Palo Santo, fragrances with cedar, with cypress, but there will be two categories of fragrances that will be noticeably absent. Fragrances with sandalwood and fragrances with oud will be covered in another video. I just have too many of them. Before I get started on tonight's video, if you have any favorite woody fragrances you'd like to share with me, I'd love to hear about them in the comment section below. And with that, let's just get started. The first category of woody fragrances I am going to start the list with tonight are fragrances that contain the woody note of Gaiac wood, also known as Palo Santo, and I've chosen two. One of them was actually my scent of the day, and that is Bouquet Ideale by Xerjoff. This is what I consider to be a delicious gateway gourmand and a gateway vanilla. In my opinion, it is a woody fragrance that leans gourmand. It's very woody, but it also has a lot of gourmandy nuances or notes, but it's not too sweet. It's not overly sweet. So if you don't like your fragrances to smell like actual food, I think you would probably still really like this fragrance. It has baking spices in the beginning. I know there's cinnamon, there's nutmeg, so it has some gourmand leaning spices, but in the end, it's a very woody fragrance. There's no doubt that this is a woody fragrance. There are at least 3 types of wood in here. I know there's Gaiac wood or Palo Santo, there's cedar, and there may be a little bit of oud. I do not get a lot of oud in this at all. So if there is oud in here, I'll put the notes up like I usually do. It's way, way, way in the background, and this dries down more vanillic and has some ambery facets. There's labdanum, and other notes or accords that give this kind of a warm, leathery amber dry down. Absolutely stunning. It's not a powerhouse, but it still has really good performance, really good projection, and decent longevity. I would say moderate. It's just a gorgeous fragrance that I absolutely love. The second fragrance with the prominent note of Gaiac wood or Palo Santo is Gaiac by Micallef. Now, I think some people thought this was actually discontinued. It is not. It is just rebottled on the Micallef website, and the bottles I think are actually a little bit smaller, but it's the same fragrance, which I'm super happy because it's a gorgeous fragrance. It's very holiday. This just kind of screams holiday because it has a very prominent note of cloves. There is a winter holiday warmth to this fragrance. I do find that the cloves tend to die down as this fragrance wears, becomes a little bit drier. The vanilla comes out a little bit more. The ambery facets come out a little bit more. So it's this nice, dry, spicy, woody fragrance. This does share some similarities to By the Fireplace, but it is in no way as sticky sweet. By the Fireplace has a sticky sweetness to it. This has that same warmth, a little bit of the smokiness, but it has none of that sticky sweetness. So it's a gorgeous fragrance, but you do have to be a fan of the clove note, but I love this. So now on to fragrances that contain a note of cypress. I love cypress. It's a very fresh evergreen type of a tree. One of the most well-known fragrances that does contain the note of cypress is Gypsy Water by BYREDO. This is another fragrance that I would consider a gateway vanilla. It has vanilla in it, but the vanilla is in no way a gourmandy type of vanilla. It is soft, but it is present, and it is accompanied by a lot of very fresh notes. This is a super bright fragrance. It has bergamot, lemon, and juniper to really open this fragrance up with tremendous amount of freshness. So it's a very fresh fragrance, but it also has a little bit deeper notes. There's a touch of incense. I don't get a ton of incense. I really do get the juniper note. There's a little bit of pepper, like a dusting of pepper, just to kind of offset some of those brighter notes and the vanilla. In the dry down, there's sandalwood, but to me, the juniper, which is a type of cypress, I believe, type of cypress evergreen, the juniper is very, very noticeable and prominent. Part of the reason I really, really enjoy this fragrance so much, I know a lot of people complain about the longevity, and at the price point, it is a valid complaint. I think this works better in the warmer months. In the warmer months, I don't have the problem that I have when it's really, really cold. So this fragrance really does better, performs better in a warmer climate. However, I recently got the oil from the oil perfumery, and this makes a ton of difference when you layer these two, because it's really cold here right now, and that will help this perform when I wear this on a cold day. The second fragrance that has a prominent note of cypress is a fragrance that I've been talking about a lot recently in my more budget-friendly videos. This is one of my favorite budget-friendly fragrances, and this is Paradiso by Roberto Cavalli. This is a citrusy, floral, woody fragrance, and the wood in here is cypress, and it is very prominent. And one of the reasons I love this fragrance so much, it's very, very bright. It does have a prominent note of jasmine, which isn't always my favorite floral, but we get along just fine in this fragrance because it's smoothed out and it's not super overpowering. But this has a lovely, fresh, evergreeny cypress dry down. This fragrance cost me all of $30. This lasts basically all day on skin and days on your clothes. So one of the best bangs for your buck and one of my favorite cypress fragrances. So next I'm going to talk about fragrances with a prominent note of oak, and I have chosen two fragrances I love. One is a budget-friendly fragrance, and one is a fragrance that I don't really hear anyone talk about, but it's one that I really enjoy. The first one is one I just talked about in my video, Smell Expensive on a Budget. It is one of my favorite celebrity fragrances, Nirvana Bourbon by the House of Elizabeth and James. Yes, these have been discontinued. They are still available on the gray markets, and their prices are very, very low. If you've ever thought about buying an Elizabeth and James fragrance, now is the time, because as these fragrances get scooped up and become more scarce, the price is really gonna go up. But it's still, I think I checked, this is within the $20 to $30 range. I think every single one except black. Black was running around $50. This is a dark, woody vanilla with a boozy tobacco vibe. Now, tobacco is not listed in this fragrance, but I think it smells like tobacco, or it has a tobacco vibe because of the very prominent note of oak in here, which gives it that dry, that gorgeous woody dry tobacco thing going on. It also has white florals listed in here. I get no white florals, thankfully, because it just would take away from what I love about this fragrance. It has a nice booziness and a nice vanillic aspect to it, but it's not a gourmand either. It is a very cozy, warm fragrance that is perfect for the colder months. This is just like fall and winter in a bottle. And I would say performance is decent. It's not great and it's not terrible. It is, I would call it moderate. So the next fragrance that has a prominent note of oak is my Falling Trees by Régime de Fleurs. This is probably the most unisex of the bunch, and the one fragrance that most people, or many people, might think leans heavily masculine, and I believe it's because it really has a heavy note of cypriol oil, which is a spicy, earthy essential oil. It kind of gives it a spicy earthiness, but this is a very woody fragrance. It's very woody and it's very incensey. So the wood is prominent and the incense is prominent. So it's woody, it's incensey, it's smoky, it's earthy, it is spicy. I don't know if there's another type of wood note in here besides oak, but it is a very clean, it is a clean wood. It's very natural. It just reminds me of the outdoors. These fragrances from this line tend to be a little on the pricey side, and surprisingly, for all these heavy notes, the performance isn't great. I can get around 4 hours from this fragrance, so you really have to be heavy-handed with this one, but I love it. It's one of those fragrances that I wear hiking and just find tremendously comforting and warm on a beautiful, cold, crisp fall day when the trees are these vibrant colors. So the next set of perfumes have a prominent note of cedar in them. If you do not know already, I am a Texas transplant. And if you are from Texas, particularly the Hill Country, you know a lot about cedar. It is quite prominent, but I'm still a huge lover of cedar. It's one of my favorite woody notes. I have 3 fragrances here. The first one is another Elizabeth & James. It's my budget-friendly option. And this one is Amethyst. Again, discontinued, but still readily available. And I think I looked yesterday and this was all of like $22 on Fragrance Net. So this is a really nice, this is one of my favorite Elizabeth & James fragrances, and I had totally forgot about it until I pulled it out this summer and wore it one day, and I remembered how great it is. So the cedar in here is very pencil shady, which I do like. It has tobacco and just some, I think just some random non-specific spices. Oh my gosh, this smells so good. If you like that pencil shavy type of a wood, particularly cedar, this will be right up your alley. I know it has some white florals listed. I really do not get any type of strong floral. I get cedar. I get this pencil shavy cedar with a little bit of spices and some tobacco. And that's all I need. It's a simple fragrance, but it's quite delicious. It does have a sweetness in the dry down. It has a softer vanilla in the dry down. Again, not a gourmand. This would be a very subtle sweetness. And the performance is okay. I would say okay, like around 4 hours. It's not a blockbuster. And a lot of people don't consider 4 hours very good. I'm okay with 4 hours. It's when it's around the 2 hour mark, I have an issue with it. So still, I know I got this on clearance and I adore this fragrance, and I have strongly considered getting a backup because I like it so much. So the next cedar heavy fragrance is going to be one called Beau by the House of ELLIS. This is a fragrance house. They are all natural, and I think most of this picked up this fragrance because of Anna Lauren, who has spoken about this fragrance a lot on her channel. So she's probably going to be the one responsible for selling this out. And I'm really happy she told me about this fragrance because it's absolutely stunning. I would describe this as an incensey woody vanilla with emphasis on the wood and the incense, because those are the notes that I pick up the most. This has several different types of wood. I want to say, well, I know there's cedar, I'm pretty sure there's Palo Santo, and there is sequoia, but this is really kind of a cedar heavy fragrance. I get a lot of incense, specifically frankincense, and I'm a huge lover of incense, so I absolutely adore that addition in this fragrance. It's part of what makes me love this fragrance so much. It's woody, it's citrusy, there's elemi resin, and so it's a little bit resinous, but elemi tends to be a little bit citrusy, so it adds a little bit of brightness. Very much a woody fragrance. It's very natural. I feel like this is just standing out in the wilderness and you're surrounded by a bunch of trees in the mountain on a perfectly clear, crisp day. And maybe somebody somewhere off in the distance is kind of burning some incense. And the vanilla for me comes out more in the dry down. It definitely gets sweeter in the dry down, but another gateway vanilla, because even though vanilla's in here, it is not a power player in my opinion. Other people might pick up the vanilla a little bit more, but I still think that it is woody, incensey, and then vanilla is kind of the third aspect of this fragrance. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I just coat myself in this when I wear it. And the last fragrance with a prominent note of cedar is one that I think came out this year by ELLIS Brooklyn, another cleanly formulated fragrance. This is called Après. I picked this up because of my lovely friend Yulia over at Scent Siblings. She said, Chris, I really don't recommend blind buying things, but I think this is a safe blind buy for you. We have very similar tastes, and I have really slowed down on my blind buying because I've purchased a lot of doozies, and that's one way I'm going to change my purchasing habits as I move forward. But I blind bought this one because she knows my taste and I wasn't disappointed. I absolutely love this fragrance. This is a very woody fragrance, and cedar is a prominent note, but this is very, very fresh to me. That has a freshness to it. It's very, very green, and the cedar is very, very prominent. So this is as if you were in a log cabin that was just put together the day before, made of freshly cut cedar planks, and you're sitting on the inside maybe having like a cocktail, a whiskey cocktail with a sprig of juniper in it. So it has some of that juniper freshness. There is whiskey, but it's not sweet, so it's a very dry booziness. The juniper berries give it a really lovely freshness. And in the dry down, it's a little bit leathery, so I think there's saffron in here and maybe suede. But another very natural fragrance. It smells like the outdoors. It smells like you're on the top of a mountain, inside a cedar ski lodge or a cedar log cabin. It's just beautiful and woody, but fresh and aromatic at the same time. I really adored this one. The next wood that's up is HINOKI wood, and I believe HINOKI wood is an evergreen that is native to Japan. And the first fragrance I'm going to talk about is actually my very favorite that has HINOKI in it, and it is called Dirty HINOKI. I have it in my little Scentbird travel size spray, which is a great way to get to know fragrances. And this was a love at first sniff, and it is what I wanted Fille Nagui from Serge Lutens to be, or was hoping it was. So the HINOKI tree is an evergreen, and it is supposed to lean very fresh and citrusy. In addition to the HINOKI note that's in here, there's also lemon. So that kind of goes along with this very fresh, citrusy, and bright type of a wood. So this one is very woody. It's fresh, it's very coniferous. So it's just wood, and more wood. Even though this has a freshness to it, there is something smoky in here. I'm pretty sure that there is incense in here and some type of resin. So this smells like you are walking in a HINOKI forest somewhere where it's the air is perfectly crisp and clean, and there's not a cloud in the sky, and you have lemon water in your hand. You're walking through the woods, and off in the distance, somebody has like a campfire going way in the background. So it's woody and fresh and a little smoky at the same time. Oh my gosh, I just absolutely love this. I had told myself this year that I wasn't gonna buy any full bottles if I have the travel spray until I finished my travel spray. And that was until yesterday when I figured out that they carry this line at Sephora, and I went ahead and bought the full bottle because of the Sephora sale. So I knew I was gonna be getting a full bottle in the future, and I might as well take advantage of the discount. So a full bottle will be heading my way, but this one has a huge dent in it already, and I've only had it for a couple weeks. I've really enjoyed this one. Now, the other HINOKI fragrance in my collection that I have now that I won't have forever is something that just didn't work out for me. And this is from the Scents of Wood. Let's do the good, bad, good sandwich. I do love these little travel sprays that they offer in the little, the little travel coffret that you can put together. You can kind of pick and choose what fragrances you want to put in the coffret. I love that about Scents of Wood. I'm so glad they have that available so that you can test these fragrances out before you purchase the big expensive bottle. And I thought, because I really do love the note of HINOKI, I've tried it in Bath and Body products before, and I've really enjoyed it. It just didn't work out for me here. This is a very green and leafy and peppery fragrance, and it starts off just fine, but as it dries down, I'm certain that there is cedar in here because it starts to turn into that dreaded, sweaty smell that cedar can often do, particularly when it's paired with different type of spices. So this one did not work out for me. I wore it all of one time, and I just knew it wasn't going to work out. But it does have a prominent HINOKI note, and I'm quite sure that for the right person and for the right skin chemistry, this one would be beautiful. But my HINOKI wood fragrance of choice is by far Dirty HINOKI. And the last two fragrances to round out the category are fragrances I don't really know the specific wood involved, but one of them is my very favorite woody fragrances. And the first one we'll talk about is Bois d'Iris by Van Cleef & Arpels. This is my second bottle. I got the first bottle right when it first came out years and years ago, and I just freaking adore this fragrance. It smells so dang good. Like the name says, there's iris in the name. The iris is very prominent. At first, I get that very waxy kind of makeup bag iris that's very prominent, but as that fades, it just becomes this gorgeous, incensey, woody fragrance with a little bit of sweetness, but it's not sweet. So it just sweetens ever so lightly with vanilla, or maybe this is the one with sugar cubes in it. And it's just this beautiful, warm, slightly smoky perfume that I absolutely adore. This is work appropriate. I wear this to work. People think I smell so great. I would say that performance is moderate. It's decent. It's not stellar, but it's moderate. And the other fragrance that I had to talk about that has prominent woody note is By the Fireplace by Maison Margiela. I only have the travel spray, which is just enough for me, because believe it or not, even for this gourmand lover, this person who loves sweet fragrances, a little of this goes a long way. This is one of those that if I spray too much, it's too much. It actually chokes me out, but it's really nice on a freezing cold day when you just want something sweet and smoky and woody. You know, this is like you're by the fireplace and you're roasting some type of nut and something very sweet, you know, marshmallows and something nutty, like a nutty s'more without the chocolate. It definitely has that, you're sitting by the fireplace roasting something sweet. And it's quite lovely. But again, a little of this goes a long way. And I have said before that this is kind of a watered down or toned down version of Lune Feline. Like if Lune Feline is too much, that thing is seriously smoky. This is like the next level down, but with a little bit of like a marshmallowy sweetness. So that's it. Those are several of my favorite woody fragrances right now that I'm really reaching for. I've been reaching for this past month, minus sandalwood and oud. That will be in a separate video. I just have too many sandalwoods and too many oud fragrances. I wanted to showcase some other woody fragrances for this video. If you like this video, if you like my content and you enjoyed your time here, I wouldn't mind a nice thumbs up. Thanks again for stopping by, and I hope to see you on the next one.